Welcome to the Be Student Podcast, and thank you for joining me. I'm Betsy Gardner, your host, and on today's episode, we're going to explore the intersection set of authenticity and curiosity, two things that can help you level up as a networker and as an innovator and business person. My guest is Bob Jimenez, and this is one you don't want to miss, so let's get started. Today, I have the privilege of talking to Bob Jimenez, founder and gallerist of Solana Fine Art Gallery in Winter Park, and former executive and communications and public affairs specialist with Fortune 100 companies such as the Walt Disney Company, Cox Enterprises, and AdventHealth. Welcome, my friend Bob. I'm so happy you're here with us today.
Thank you, Betsy. I'm delighted to be here.
Well, I've wanted to have this conversation with you for a long time because you're so many things. And you kind of walked into our organization and made a bang, not in a loud or cacophonous way, but in a way where we really felt your presence. We felt the sense of urgency, the creativity, the willingness to collaborate and partner, the kind of drive to innovate. There was a lot that you brought to the table when I got the privilege of meeting you last year. So I wanted to sit down with you and talk with you. On this podcast, we talk about the B side to somebody's record. So we do want to get, of course, into the fact that you're now a gallerist, but that is kind of the B side to your record. Mm-hmm. You had this sort of long and winding road through corporations to get there. So I want to talk a little bit about that. And then, we share a passion for art. We've done some arts advocacy in Tallahassee together. Right. I want to go into that as well. But will you tell us a little bit about, I know one of the things that fascinates me about you is that you've been a communicator at the top of the game. You communicated for Disney, AdventHealth, large corporations, Cox Communications. And in doing so, you were recognized as one of the most influential Hispanic business leaders in the country. I know you're going to be embarrassed by this, but I have to do this because I'm so impressed by my friend Bob. In Atlanta, you were signaled out as one of the most influential Hispanic leaders in Atlanta. So tell us about kind of your experience with leading communications at that scale, because we know you did it well. Yeah. What, as you reflect on your time as a communications executive, are the takeaways? Because I think they're things that are durable for us, no matter which mediums we're now moving to. I know it's a different medium than we would have used 10 years ago, 20 years ago. Yeah. But the heart and soul of what remains about effective communication is what?
Oh my gosh, is authenticity. I think one of the most important things that anyone can do at any level of an organization is to speak with an authentic voice. And here's the thing, employees know when it's not.
Right away.
Right away. They know when it's too much. They know when you're using too much corporate speak. They know when you're trying to fluff too much. I mean, they know. So one of the things I think that has led to some of my success has been telling it straight. And the good, the bad, the ugly. If there's anyone you need to be straight with, it's your employees, because they're ambassadors, they're representatives of the company throughout their communities where they live. And in the example of Cox, we had some 60,000 employees in
60,000 employees.
60,000.
Okay. Yep.
60,000 employees across, most of the U.S. And internationally, because we had a global automobile auction that was in about 18 countries around the world.
Gosh. Okay.
And so there was no luxury in trying to, really, create different things for different audiences. I mean, we had to be straight in what was going on because we all operated as one, or at least tried to operate as one cohesive organization that all had similar goals for the year. So not only authentic communication, but frequent. And then when you make a mistake, own up to it and admit it.
So I still see people doubling down in crisis time, and I find it shocking. Yeah. I mean, I don't want to be calling anybody out, but I think there are those online that believe the Target CEO just did that recently. Yeah. And it's kind of shocking because I've never heard of that strategy working. And one of the things I would love to have for our listeners today is some actionable tips about how do we show up authentically, particularly if you've got to manage a crisis situation. There's no way, no matter how good you are as a communicator, that you never had to do crisis work, right?
Oh my gosh.
Right.
It was most of where I spent my
So
time.
many things we can't even change or affect that are going on externally in the environment. But I would love to understand a little bit. So let's go back 20 years. The main way you're communicating externally is through legacy media outlets, newspaper, magazines, local news, TV news, network news, right?
Right.
Well, those aren't the big players anymore. And yet we know that the influencers that are showing up on social media, the ones that are doing best are the ones that are showing up authentically.
Yeah.
What do you think are the tips to doing that? Because I know in your case, whatever you're creating from an internal comms or external comms perspective still has to go through the lawyers. And lawyers, I love you guys, but sometimes you can get us off track with the authenticity mode. So help us understand how that works. What do you think are the keys to showing up authentically, even when it's got to go through the lawyer filter?
I'm going to touch on a crisis situation, actually, because I think that's when it's very real life, first of all, and it's when people's real personalities and the way they work, the way they treat others really comes out. So one of the things that has really proven to be a key part of my leadership is I have tended to be kind of the voice of reason in the room. So what will happen during a crisis, and you're smiling a bit now, which makes me think
have one speed and it's cool. Like I just don't see you as an excitable person. So you'd be the perfect person in a crisis PR situation.
So what will happen is you have all of these different constituent groups, right? These different departments. Legal, you mentioned one of them.
Right.
But there's risk and there's diversity and there's the executive suite and there's finance and there's all these HR, all these other groups that have a point of view, right? And an opinion about what should or shouldn't be done. And sometimes they're at odds with one another. So what I did was I kind of planted myself in the middle and kind of became this convener, this arbiter, this voice of reason. And here's what I used. I used a rubric, and anyone can use this at times of crisis.
Okay.
And you will make the most authentic, real decision. It won't make it less easy, or less easy in some cases. It may make it even more difficult. But at least you'll be making decisions that align with what's most important to you. And two questions when you come up with in a crisis. First of all, to what extent does responding or engaging align with your values of the organization? All right. So if you look at it on an axis, on kind of an XY axis, on one axis, you're going to have your values. On the other axis is to what extent does this crisis potentially impact your stakeholders? Okay. So when you think those two realms, it at least gives you a framework to think about, okay, if we don't respond to fill in the blank crisis or issue du jour or whatever's going out there, because every day it seems like there's something crazy, right?
People love to jump in from those keyboards, don't they?
They do.
Yes.
They do. Stop for a moment, think about, okay, is this really high on my values list? So if it's high on your values, if it's highly important to your stakeholders, well, then, yeah, you better speak up and you better be really forceful. And you may even want to lead on that issue and be a leading voice in that. If it's low, then maybe you can get away with one of your CEOs or maybe someone in another part of the organization speaking on behalf of the company. If it's low on both of those axes, let it go. Don't engage. It's not worth it.
Yeah.
But if you use that, it really helps you frame a crisis in a way that really makes a lot of sense and takes some of the passion and
because it's always passion when it's crisis.
And energy.
It's always
it is.
I make a fantasy open letter to the community I want to write in my head. Here's what I want to say, right?
It stays in your head,
and it stays in my head.
Okay,
it doesn't go.
Good.
But we used an axis like that. I love that you've given us these two actionable things to think about. But, we did take a bold position in a crisis once because we knew that not doing so would erode our position as a role model for the business community.
Yep.
And we also knew it was going to hurt our employees and it was going to affect our culture. And we had to take a position because of that. I would have much rather not having done that because it brought a lot of stress and anxiety to my life, but it was the right thing to do.
Yeah.
So I think those are really important. Those are actually really important navigational beacons about how to communicate, full stop.
Yeah.
So we could actually stop this podcast now and go get a beer.
Oh, well, let's keep going.
Yeah. That's a really good takeaway from this. So I love that. But I think, it's really interesting because the experience of knowing you is that your integrity and the richness of who you are comes across in a very quiet, very humble kind of way. And I think the things that you're talking about that you imbued corporate communications with really walked and talked and sounded like Bob Jimenez, right? And we're focused on how do we convene what we call the sane center, right? We're in this heavily divided world where we've got media channels that are helping us cut deeper and deeper grooves into more divisiveness, more hating, more you're wrong, I'm right, all this.
Right.
And we're trying to create a place where people can come together and find the ways they're more alike than how they're different. Yeah. Because if we don't start collaborating, we're not going to have any potential for solving some of these urgent issues that are bearing down on us.
Totally agree.
So what do you think are some of the other takeaways from the Bob Jimenez? Do you have some more 2 tips, 3 tips for us about, so you played that role of convener of the Sane Center in these large corporate matrixed organizations. What is the key, do you think, to being a successful convener of the Sane Center?
So, I think you have to take your head out of your own organization, and you have to be proactive and really deliberate about this, and create alliances outside of your organization. I mean, that is so key. I'll give you a great example. Crisis pops up. It could be absolutely anything. One of the first things that I did when a crisis arose, I contacted my counterpart at Coca-Cola, at Home Depot, at SunTrust, at UPS. These are all Atlanta-based companies, and I knew them really well, and some others outside of Atlanta. But I was based in Atlanta when I was with Cox, because I knew they were dealing with the same thing, and I knew that my leadership would ask, well, what is this company doing? What are they doing? Because they wanted to make sure whatever we decided to do, that it was in line with, with what others were doing, and it wasn't too far out there or too way out there. So I immediately equipped myself with, I'm doing an environmental scan. I'm going to see what others are doing
and
in
indexing
response.
Best practice, which is always a good idea.
There you go. So I was armed with that. So I had information they didn't have, but they really wanted. Yeah. So I made myself valuable in that respect, or at least the information was valuable. So so once you take that information, compare it or put it up against this values matrix that I talked about earlier, then decision making can actually be made much more quickly and in alignment with what's most important.
Okay, so y'all just remember, we had Bob on today to talk about art, and look where we already are. This is very exciting. So I think the other thing that you did there that is so needed now is that you cut across the loneliness that so many executives feel. They feel that they're by themselves on an island having to come up with the golden answer for this really thorny thing. Yeah. And it's all on my shoulders and I've got to figure it all out, when actually everybody else in your seat at all those other companies, they were just as moored on their island as you were. Totally. We are experiencing, as you know, a crisis of loneliness in our culture. Yeah. Our Surgeon General, Vivek Murthy, wrote a book about loneliness is the new smoking. It's actually that bad for our health. Wow. We know it's showing up in suicide rates and self-harming and all manner of things that we don't want to see cutting through our culture. How do you think what is the takeaway for someone who's looking to cut down on the loneliness of their executive experience or their, as you talk about interacting with the external environment, that's a struggle for me. I feel that the time I spend out of the office makes me further away from my team.
Mm.
But I also know every time I leave the office, I'm learning something new. I'm selling something that we're doing better.
Yeah.
I'm moving our influential platform along. So there's always that critical tension between how much time should you be in the office operating and how much time do you need to be out cheerleading for your organization or your business. What's your secret to that, do you think?
I spent most of my time outside of the organization, understanding the dynamics of the environment and the competitive environment in which we operated, and it was so valuable to me in terms of what I was doing. One of the examples that I share sometimes about just how valuable is, every organization is going to face some issue, something that's going to some setback of some kind, and or get a black eye, something that bad happens. You didn't cause it, maybe you did cause it. Who knows exactly what it was, but something that's gonna position the company in a bad light. You need friends out there, right? You need third-party endorsers, is what we call them. People who will speak on your behalf, not affiliated with your company, but who know you.
Well, we always say, I get paid to tell you that the Winter Park Chamber is a great organization. When other people tell you that, it's even better.
Right. It makes more of an impact.
Right. It makes a way bigger impact. Yeah.
So the time to have those people on your side and speaking up for you is not during the crisis. You have to have developed a relationship with these individuals in order for them to get to know you.
Yeah,
right?
It's like off-season training for the football team. You got to stay fit so you can be ready.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
And so I can remember incidences that happened, things really unfortunate. We couldn't have planned for them, but they gave us black eyes, and this is across all my organizations. And thankfully, I had relationships with community organizations who had a say in this issue, who may have disagreed with what happened and said, you know what, that really wasn't a great thing that happened at this company, but I know that's not their character. And I know that,
wow.
And I know that they're going to fix it, and I know it won't happen again.
Wow. Getting other people to vouch for you.
That's
so great.
That's good as gold.
Yeah.
But again, it doesn't happen magically. You have to have those relationships and have to have invested the time so that they know who you are and know what you're about.
Well, I know you had relocated here from Atlanta, and I hadn't had the privilege of knowing you beforehand.
Yeah.
But when you opened your gallery, a lot of people I knew who were very influential people in the region are like, hey, I want you to focus on this gallery. And I said to my team, hey, we need to focus here because I haven't met this guy yet, but his friends are all good people, right?
That's
and they were
funny.
all vouching for you. So that cuts through, right? That cuts through very quickly, eliminates any clutter or noise and helps you understand this man is known by the company he keeps. And these are all pretty incredible people. This is one of the things my mother told me in high school. You are the company you keep. So,
you know what's interesting? I was born in Puerto Rico, and, my parents instilled a lot of wonderful values and things in me and cultural things that I still carry on today as a way to honor them. One of the things that I always remember, and it struck me with what you said, there's a saying that they would say in Spanish, which conveys that same thing, which is, dime con quién andas y te diré quién eres, which is basically, tell me who you're hanging out with. Who are you hanging out with? I'll tell you what kind of person you are.
Yeah.
That's what that means. And it's just what your mom or your grandmother.
My mom.
Your mom was saying that.
And then my version of that with my children is, as I've said this for a long time, my greatest wealth is my children's friends. So the people who've been around them, who influence them, that are positive, that means they're going to be. I remember going to see my daughter about 9 months into her first year of college, and I met her friends, and I thought, I can relax now. Whatever happens up here, these are the people, these are the women of integrity. They're going to surround her, that are going to keep her safe, that are going to encourage her, that are going to motivate her to make good choices. Her context is secure now, and I'm done.
What a wonderful
It was
feeling.
Amazing, right? And I thought, for me, that's what real wealth is, right?
Oh, yeah, for
Knowing that my children know how to choose contexts that outlast me was a key moment for me. And you've
Mm.
done that very, very well. Now I want to talk for a minute about I've actually seen very few chamber members jump in and navigate the work that we do as quickly or as deftly as you have. Deftly. We are very much like a gym in that we have a whole set of workout apparatuses and courses and things you can do to get fit. But if you don't show up, and I don't need you to show up in person, you can show up digitally, you can show up influentially from other places.
Yeah.
But if you don't activate what we're offering, it isn't very useful,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Now, on the digital side, we do an awful lot of stuff where you don't have to touch anything and it's very valuable. But I'm talking about that kind of getting something done piece, right? And I think as you're speaking and sharing your experience about seeding all of your advocates all around both your corporate community and your actual community.
Mm-hmm.
And now we're redefining community. It can be through who you video game with. It can be through who you worship with. It can be through who you engage with on an antiques platform over in Poland. I mean, it can be anywhere, right? So what do you think do you feel like you have a secret sauce about networking and engaging because you're really good at it?
Oh, well, that's kind of.
And it's something we get feedback from people saying, I know I'm supposed to network, but how do you do it?
Well, that's interesting. And I've been asked this before, and I wish I had a secret formula about it. So I think some of it is innate in that I find people just really fascinating.
So it's that curiosity piece.
I love talking to people. I can strike up a conversation with just about anyone. I always ask lots of questions because, that's how you can really open up and get someone to really talk about themselves. And people love to talk about themselves. So it's easy to get it going. So I think part of it is just getting to know something about them. And it's amazing. And you're really good at this too. So compliment back to you as well. You're able to discern or to pick out an element of something that someone says, which means you're a really good listener. And that's actually part of it as well.
Really? Okay, good.
And you're able to riff off of that and make connections in your head where then you can take the conversation, right? So someone makes a comment, maybe they say something just off the cuff about a sporting team. All of a sudden you have picked up on that, and then you're making some reference, or do you know someone who's affiliated with sports organization or whatever. I mean, that being able to find that thread and to continue getting deeper and deeper, I think the underlying part of it is curiosity for sure. It's just
100%.
real interest. But a lot of it is just, just seeing where it goes too. It's kind of exciting to kind of see what you can find out. And
So let's go back to chapter 1 of this episode, which is about authenticity.
Okay.
So here you are telling us that being curious is your secret weapon in networking. People think, oh, I got to show up at this lunch and backslap a bunch of people and trade cards and go home. I find that really unpleasant.
Yeah.
Because there isn't an authenticity there. There isn't a deeper curiosity about who that person is. And I'm not interested in being transactional in business. I don't think that's a long play.
Right. No.
I think people
totally.
see right through it. And I think that it isn't the way I want to show up in business.
Yeah.
I want to partner with people. And then, I made a phone call to a member of ours who's having a really hard time. And I called him last night. I said, I want to make sure we're here for the good times and the bad. We're not just here to take your money and make sure your business is successful. We're here to stand with you, right, as your partner long term. And my approach to business has always been, let's figure out where the points of alignment are, but also first, let's just know each other and let's figure out and listen and figure out where those points of alignment are, because if we can find them more authentically and naturally, the business walks in here on its own 2 feet, right?
Yep.
And then it recurs.
Yep.
You don't have to go chase it again. It's just there. And it's funny that you said, I listen for that one thing. That was something I was actually trained to do. My mother, when I graduated from college, told me I couldn't go work for a nonprofit. I wanted to change the world. It was 1991, and I was like young, and I had a history degree, and come on.
Oh, yeah.
So my
Bring
mom's
it.
like, no, you're not working for a nonprofit right out of school. You need to go work for a big company and learn skills and how to navigate that big environment. And I was like, well, that sounds soul crushing. I don't want to do that. But I did. So I went to work for a Fortune 50 company. It was America's most admired company, then Merck and Company.
Right.
And I had to get doctors who were super busy and had no interest in being interrupted to stop what they were doing and listen to a sales pitch from me.
Wow.
But before I even got to do that, I had to go through the front gatekeeper. And the front gatekeeper, more times than not, didn't have the same educational background that I had, probably didn't have the same ethnic background that I had a very different life than I had, and thought, who's this little girl in a dress that's been paid by a pharmaceutical company to come in here and look cute and bring us lunch? And I was like,
they wield a lot of power, though, don't they?
Yeah. Well, I was like, I don't really want to be seen like that either, right?
Oh, my
so
gosh.
I lived in Charlotte, North Carolina early on in my career. And these gatekeepers followed NASCAR. They were country ladies, and this is back in the early 90s. And those were, NASCAR's grown in its diversity of what its fan base looks like now. But back then it was country people, right? And I had to know what driver was the favorite driver of these front desk people, or else I wasn't getting in there to do my job.
I love that.
And
That's
so
hilarious.
I had to stand and listen and hear about, I had to probe for what really mattered to them so that I could connect with them as quickly as possible and have them trust me and not dislike me for being an obvious interrupter to the operational efficiency of this place. So I learned that so early on that I don't even think about doing it.
That's a great story.
But I want to go to one of the things that fascinates me about you, which is your corporate pedigree, right? There's things that we learn in big corporations that we cannot learn anywhere else. And there is an awful lot of best practice there. And I want to talk a little bit about, I don't know how you have a stint at Disney and that doesn't change the way you see the world of business forever. What did you learn, or what does one learn when they work at Disney?
Oh, wow. I've never worked for another organization that works so hard to protect its reputation and its brand. Many times you will hear, and I understand it's still said quite a bit, is remember it all started with a mouse, right? I mean, so that
I just got chills when you said that.
Think about that. Never lose sight of the fact that what started this company 100 plus years ago was an idea. And then a whole slew of ideas after that came after has created this amazing organization, amazing company that it is today, and it continues to evolve. So, I consider those some of my funnest and most challenging years at the same time, because the type of work I did, there was a very small team that was relegated to public affairs.
Relegated. I
I
love that you said relegated.
Well, and interestingly, so there was a massive public relations PR team that was really, really great.
So many of those people are in Central Florida doing great things.
Yeah.
It's
And they're
incredible.
putting out wonderful stuff about new rides and attractions and hotels and themed celebrations and all this kind of thing. That's great. I mean, that's a wonderful machine. That wasn't the small team in public affairs. So we were dealing with things that really could have an impact to the brand and the reputation of the organization. So many times things that were a little sticky, a little icky, if you will, but yet an organization of that size deals with all the time. So it gave me a perspective and insights into an organization like that very few have. So I really felt a sense of responsibility with that. Secondly, I was going to work like hell to make sure that nothing tarnished it.
Yeah, that you're not the weak link over there,
No,
right?
no.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that this to minimize risk and exposure, to mitigate risk for the brand and for the company, and to do everything I can to make sure and burnish that image and make it as shiny as it ever has been. I wanted to contribute to it. So a huge sense of responsibility. I learned so much because I got exposed to lots of things. And I think I really became a real true crisis communicator and responder, and earned my chops in that job.
Maybe not what you want to grow up to do, but you're good at it.
No,
and there's super huge value in doing that.
Super huge value, and you will use it. I mean, sadly, things happen. But that experience I had made me kind of an expert in that space after that. So it really was wonderful.
So I think it's interesting because in a minute, I want to go finally to your gallery, which I think you can't take the Disney out of you, right? Would you agree with that? Like once you've been there, you're going to have a Disney standard. I remember when I worked at Merck, it was like, this is the Merck way. And our science was better and our commitment to science was stronger. And there was just this, and I drank all that Kool-Aid and I just thought we're just a better company, right? We're just better at this. And I do still believe we're better. I mean, I don't even work for Merck anymore and I still believe we're better. But I think there's things that I learned in the early 90s as a young professional in that company that I thought were kind of torturously corporate and ridiculous. And guess who's repeating them all now that she's running an organization? I mean, it's embarrassing, right? But there's a way in which your gene mutates when you're inside an organization that expresses its identity that strongly, right? Yeah. And you can't ever go back to who you were before you had that experience. Would you agree with that?
I totally agree with that.
So let's talk about somebody who's running a small business and hasn't really thought about their brand or reputation. They're just so busy making widgets or getting their billables in, or they can't believe they're scaling at this level. And I hadn't even really thought about that. Or even worse, I'm from a younger generation where all you have to do is make an Instagram account and here we go. So I see young people not taking the extra step on brand management and reputation management sometimes because they're already here. Their brand is known. It's done, right? And you see I'm seeing more and more people that are younger that own companies that haven't taken that step because they were up and running so much faster than any of us would have been in another generation. We had to pay so many dues to get just as far that they don't have as much of a sense of the capital investment, of the reputational capital that went into that. And people like you out in Atlanta going to all the external things, building up all that reputational and identity capital, both for yourself and for the organization. What do you think are the keys for someone who's running a smaller business to reputation management? I mean, we have so many other great vehicles we can use now. I don't have to hire a PR team to do this or get a bunch of people to write press releases. I could effectively do that on social media if I'm smart enough and I have the right strategy.
Yeah, I think there's so many more tools in the toolkit today.
And also weapons that cut two ways.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. So as a new small business owner, I, of course, am thinking about this as well and how I establish myself, what kind of reputation, what kind of image do I want the gallery to have in Central Florida? And, I'm thinking with a long-term perspective. So while some of these small businesses may have gotten up to scale pretty quickly, if you're not thinking longer scale, if you're not thinking, how do I sustain this and grow it over time, you have to think about, the branding and the reputation and what people think and how they talk about you and what tools you use to get the message across. So social media is certainly something that we leverage and a lot of companies do. I think there's a right way and a not so right way to do it. I mean, there's some organizations that will just inundate. I don't think that's an effective tool. I think finding the right it goes back to partnership with me, right?
Mm-hmm.
So right now I have an exhibition going on with interior, talking about the integration between art and interior design. I knew I couldn't do this on my own. No one knows me here yet, right? I opened 5 months ago. So one of the first things I did, one of the first calls I made was to Christy Ashby. She is
It's one of the best people you can partner with in this whole town.
For those who don't know her, she's the publisher, CEO, editor of Orange Appeal or Appeal Media. And they produce 2 magazines. One is Orange Appeal, one is Interior Appeal. Interior Appeal covers the interior design industry in Central Florida, and they do a beautiful job. So I said, okay, if I'm going to make this successful, if I want to message, if I want to brand myself as serious and as credible, and if I want to message to my audience that, okay, he's partnering with the right folks.
Around here.
I'm not messing around. Then that's somebody that I need to win over, and I need to at least say, hey, can we work together? And I met Christy for the first time. I just she didn't really know me. I think she knew of me and had heard about me, but still.
Because of all your advanced team like I had?
I think so. And I pitched the idea, and she was like, love the idea, count me in, right? So we're so much stronger when we look beyond just what we control. And when you really build a coalition, I mean, it doesn't matter who gets the credit at the end of the day. I mean, if people walk away saying, man, I went to this great exhibit at this gallery and they had these great designers and I saw it in this magazine. I mean, it's doing exactly what you want it to do. So I think part of that is not necessarily having to be credited with, with all the props and all that kind of stuff. I mean, it's important sometimes, but it's not what drives me. I mean, I know I'm in business for one purpose, and I have 20 artists that I'm representing whose 100% of their time is devoted to creating art. Mm. This is how they support themselves. This is what they live off of. This is how they, this is their form of income, their only source of income. So I'm going to do everything I can to help shine a light on them and their work and to help make them successful. That's a big responsibility, right? Because I'm like, all of a sudden this becomes, wow, I'm really helping these people live fuller lives and really become more successful. But I'm using all these tools that I've learned through the years, promoting and events and marketing and partnering and sponsorships and promotions and things like that will help them be more successful. So that's what I hope to do with this venture.
Well, a good partner can make 1 + 1 = 9.
Yeah,
I think. And I love that you've done that. All right. So let's talk about the gallery.
Okay.
Solana Fine Art Gallery is something altogether new and opened, like you said, 5 months ago in Winter Park. And I think if you haven't been there yet, you need to go. You're going to see the imprimatur of Bob's Disney time there. Every blade of grass is perfectly geometrically manicured. Every lick of paint is perfect. The color scheme is amazing. The signage on the outside of the building, the beverages you're offered there, the lighting, I remember when you said to me, for an event, we also have this hedge wall that we bring in so you can't see the parking lot. I was like, oh my God, that's, I think, the most Disney thing I've ever heard anybody say to me. And I just think so much of that comes through in that experience, right? And we have a lot of galleries here, but Central Florida is growing up. It's becoming a much more mature expression of itself. Yep. And it's attracting people who want to see a different kind of art. And that's something that you've tapped into. And I think, of course, I'm thrilled that you decided to make Winter Park the home for the gallery. I think it's a perfect fit. But we want people who are watching this from all over the world to come here. We want them to come to your gallery. We want them to feel welcome in this special place that is Central Florida and is also parochial and different within the whole experience of that. Tell me about your choice to do this
and to do it here and through the lens of Central Florida, this opportunity zone that is very nascent and interesting. We're ready for this. Tell me a little bit about that. I know some of this story, but I want our listeners to hear it.
So after 35 years in corporate affairs, I had felt like I had done everything that I wanted to do, and decided to close that chapter and move back here to Central Florida. But I grew up here, so this was coming back home for me. The plan all along was to move back to Central Florida after my corporate stint. And my wife enthusiastically joined me.
That usually helps.
That helps. She wanted to come back, which was great. But we have lots of ties here. I went to grade school and high school and grad school at Rollins, and I've got family here, and it just, for all the right reasons, made a lot of sense. So the plan was always to come back. What to do in this post-corporate period of my life? I call it my third of my life, is how I define it. And in his third, I thought, okay, this is the time for me to really lean into those things that make me happiest and bring the greatest joy in my life. The arts has always played a key role in bringing me the greatest joy.
Coming back to that authenticity, which comes through in every single vapor of your brand, Bob. This is really cool. Okay.
I started in the musical arts when I was just a kid, playing the piano, singing all through, grade school, high school. In college, I was introduced.
We're going to have a late night sing along at some point, led by you.
Yeah, that may never happen, but okay. You can keep asking. And then in college, I was introduced. I took a art history class.
Okay.
And was really introduced to art in a more formal way, and really loved it. And that appreciation for art led to kind of admiration. Admiration then kind of led to collection.
Okay.
Where
the gateway drug.
Oh man, let me tell you what. Once you get started, it's so addictive.
Right.
Once you get started, it's kind of hard to stop.
You run out of wall space. Got to buy a new house.
You know what it's like. And then I really wanted to learn more about it. So I went from collection to education, and that's where I did some study in art history and gallery management and all that kind of stuff. And then so by the time I completed that chapter in corporate affairs, I was like, I know what I'm going to do.
That's so great.
I just have to find the right space, the right right way to introduce it. I wasn't going to do it with a partner. I wanted to do it on my own. And so what I did is I set out to visit every single art gallery in Central Florida. I've been to all of them because I had to understand what was out there, and
indexing best practice again. Yeah.
I talked to a lot of people, arts patrons, interior designers, custom home builders, artists themselves. And I kept getting a consistent response or some consistent feedback from them about, man, we just need a gallery here that really is focused on fine contemporary works. It doesn't all have to be here from Central Florida, so it's introducing the Central Florida area to works from other parts of the country. But
I've heard we're going to be hearing from Puerto Rico soon in terms of through the lens of the work you're doing.
We may very well be doing that. So introducing new things, and then creating an experience unlike any other gallery that you might go into. So maybe, there's a greater attention toward lighting and towards kind of triggering all the senses when you walk in. So that was one of the things that I was really intentional about. I wanted people, when they walked in, that I was hitting as many senses as possible, right? So what they're seeing, what they're smelling. So I've got
I think smell is the most powerful sensory
It really
trigger,
is.
isn't it?
It really
Yeah.
is. And it takes people specifically to a place
Yeah.
and they remember,
Yeah.
right? So you will experience, what they touch, and you will experience what they hear. I have music playing. So I'm trying to really get as much of you engaged, the guest engaged, the guest. That's a
See,
Disney
that's a
reference, isn't it?
Disneyism right there.
The customer as engaged as possible in what they're about to see, so that from the moment they walk in, they feel, oh, this is different. This is different.
I love it.
So that's the experience I wanted to create. So that's what we have. And then to provide a collection of artwork that is really diverse. So I have everything from really non-representational. You look at it and you're like, I don't know what that is, to very realistic, to where you can even count the numbers of hairs on this zebra.
Right. I've seen that one. It's pretty
You've
amazing.
seen that one. Yes. And everything in between, really abstract stuff, abstract expressionist stuff, and really everything in between. So, three-dimensional art in glass or in fiberglass and resin and steel or aluminum, bronze. So there's a little bit of everything in there. And part of that too is I'm still kind of feeling my way around Central Florida to see what, you mentioned it, about the maturity level of Orlando, and it's evolving. And I think it's more mature on the performing arts side.
Oh, yeah.
Honestly.
The Dr. Phillips Center has really given us a lift there. Yeah.
What a gem that is in our community, and they're doing a fascinating job. So it's more mature on performing than on the visual art side, I would say.
Right.
So there's some room to,
and you figured it out.
Well,
I love it.
Well, I'm one of the avenues that's trying to bring about some new and different things in the community, and so I'm having a ball. I mean, every day is a learning experience. I don't have any employees. I'm the only employee. I don't think I can justify it quite yet, number one. But number two, it forces me to get to know every single aspect of this business. So when I need to bring someone in, I know exactly what they should be doing, what they shouldn't be doing, and how to instruct them and how to train them. And then I can let them go off and do what they need to do.
That's a great grounding principle for anyone who's thinking about starting their own business.
You really need to know.
You got to learn all the operations yourself so that you can then train.
Yeah.
Well, I just love this conversation. I've been looking forward to it for such a long time. And I love that the gallery is truly an expression of that intersection set of authenticity and curiosity that is so much the Bob Jimenez brand. Thank you for sharing all this with us today.
Oh my gosh.
Do you have any parting thoughts for our listeners, or besides, please come to the Solana Fine Art Gallery?
Well, that would be the biggest thing that I'd like to convey. But just a word of thanks, not only to you, Betsy, and to the chamber. It was very easy for me to engage because you created such a welcoming environment.
Great.
But you do only get you get as much as you put in, right? So you really do need to show up and be part of it. So thank you for that. But also for the community who have embraced us, who are supporting local art, who are supporting these artists that are really doing amazing things. I think working with creatives is one of the most rewarding things that
or as my
I've
grandmother
been able
would
to
say, interesting.
Oh, it's
which
so
shouldn't always
interesting.
mean a positive thing.
And there's a reason why someone like me with a business background is kind of steadying the boat and making sure that it is, at the end of the day, it is a business. But at the same time can really appreciate and value what these folks do. So thank you so much for having me.
Well,
and for
I
your
appreciate
interest.
your being here with us today and for all the work you do to lift up Central Florida and certainly the arts platform here in our region. Hope to see you again soon. Thanks, Bob.
You will. Thanks, Betsy.